Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the CHEK blog. I'm happy to have our old friend and contributor to the blog here, Jator, Pierre. Jator, how are you?
I think I'm all right.
I think I am too, apart from this little cold I got. For those of you who haven't stopped by the Czech blog before and you haven't read Jator's posts for us or haven't watched some of his videos, for shame on you because you really should. But Jator is a Czech faculty member and just one of our teachers here. We love him and he does wonderful classes for us. So we're very fortunate to have him with us. And Jator, when I was talking to Jator about his introduction, he wanted me to be very specific and tell you that he's a self-proclaimed weirdo. Um, no judgments involved, right?
No judgment there at all.
That's right. Um, but I love having Jator's contribution because he always brings a very unique and distinct perspective to the blog, and he's going to do that today by talking about what he calls peppers. Does nothing to do with the vegetable, but everything to do with a really fascinating and again unique approach to perceiving health and well-being. So thanks for joining us, Jator, and thanks for talking to us about peppers.
I am honored to be here and to share and grow with you, my friend. Thank you.
Great. So what is peppers?
So, peppers, yeah, it's in the nightshade family.
But
No, peppers is it's really interesting. I had a dream one night, and this word acronym peppers came to me. And there's probably a part of me that looks up to Paul. He always has the great acronyms, CHEK, and all these other things that he comes up with I think are really cool. And
yeah.
so there's a part of me that was excited that I had an acronym that was cool for me.
Hmm.
And that acronym, PEPPRS, stands for play,
Mhm.
exposome, pleasure, pain, rest, and soil of self. And what that means is it's kind of a framework to look at how we create health and wellness within ourselves in conjunction with the six principles and four doctors. So how that actually breaks down is how many of us don't have enough play in our lives. In my experience of myself and of my clientele and of teaching or sharing for the CHEK Institute, very few of us invite a lot of unbound play into our lives. And when you look at a lot of the latest research that's going on right now, play is a huge, huge part of what it requires to have a healthy mind, a healthy body, a healthy gut, a healthy mental and emotional state, to make healthy choices, to look at your value sets, etc. And why that's important to me is anything that I learn about when it comes to health and wellness, whether it's through the CHEK Institute or anywhere else that I may look into, there's three lenses that I always explore. And those three lenses are looking at things through the ancestral lens. So what did our ancestors do? Well, when we look at nutrition and physical degeneration, a lot of people read that book and focus specifically on the nutritional aspects of what created health in those people and their dentition, etc. Oh, the rule of thirds, their teeth, their musculoskeletal structure, all of that is looked at through the lens of nutrition for a lot of people. When I read that book and when I've revisited that book and kind of played with it in my mind, there's a lot more than nutrition in that book. If you look at those people's lifestyles, they had community, they had time barefoot on the earth, they were in nature all the time. They had a lot of play. Their work was in the first 4 hours or so of the day, and they had a lot of play time, rest time, storytelling time, etc. in their life. And all of those aspects created their musculoskeletal structure. All of those aspects created their dentition. So when we see those people, moving towards eating, quote unquote, the four white devils, and we blame it on those four white devils, there's something that's really important that we're missing. And that's, for me, that's a quite myopic view, and it's quite judgmental, but it's true for me, and doesn't mean it's true for you. That we're missing all of these other subtle influences on our musculoskeletal system, on our gut health, on our neurotransmitters, on our hormone profile. All of those things play a role here, not just nutrition. So play is a very important aspect when you look at it from an ancestral lens. So that's one lens that I look at many things through. Then looking at things through a research lens. So past research, current research, and finding someone, if you're not willing to do this, who's schooled in research methodology and able to sift through research to find more reliable research. And I use that word reliable very kind of tongue-in-cheek. I think all research is on a spectrum of reliability, and the more clear-cut and the more concise the research is in terms of variables, we can become more reliant on it. But you still have to look through ancestral lens. Does that match up? Yes, oh, that matches up. Cool. So then we have good research to kind of guide us. And for me, most importantly, which for me is a CHEKism, is the third lens is learning to listen to your own innate wisdom and checking in with yourself. Does that make sense to me? How do I feel about that? What comes up in me when I think about that? When I run play through that lens, oh my God, my inner child smiles so big. I remember the times playing and having fun. And currently in my life, I play ice hockey 4 to 5 times a week. 3 of those times usually are just pickup hockey, where there's no score, there's no competition. It's just play. It's just for fun. And it's very, 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 it's been very healing to my mind, to my gut, to my body. And it's been an amazing experience to play more and invite more play. And I'm inviting all of you guys to invite more play into your life, acting silly, cracking up, playing with young kids is one of the most fun things that I can do. When I go to an adult party, you'll usually find me with all the kids playing some strange games because it's so much more fun. I don't want to, well, for me, I don't want to talk about all this chit chat. I want to just play and have a good time. So play.
And when you talk about play, I mean, I've heard people talk, oh, well, play needs to be unstructured, unbounded, or again, I guess probably the answer to what is play, because that's what I'm getting at. What is play? That's probably mostly comes from that inner lens that you're talking about. What it is that counts as play for you.
I would agree, and since I agree means it's right.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's really important, James. I think that what is play for you, all of you guys and girls out there, that is the most important thing. What feels playful for you in your heart of hearts, and getting into a space maybe of really calming your mind and getting maybe into a meditative space and really asking yourself, what is really playful for me? And invite that into your life and move that into your life. It's extremely healing to your hormonal system, to your neurotransmitters, to your gut health, to your brain health, to your musculoskeletal function, to your organs and glands. We don't have time to get into how that all happens. Just know, and you can go do your own research, it's very, very healing to the body.
Okay.
So next on our fun chart here is the exposome. And the exposome, what that stands for is all of the influences outside of our genetic template. So at the moment of conception, your influences of your mother's perceptions of life, her relationship with your father's potential subtle energies and how he felt about you coming into this world, how she felt about you coming into this world. Were you cesarean section? Were you vaginally birthed? Did you get breast milk? Were you a carnation baby? And then growing from there on out, right? Infant development, What types of schools did you go to? Your experiences of your family. All of this plays a role. Uh, the environment of your home, was it a toxic environment in terms of off-gassing of paints? How much time in nature did you have? What type of water you were drinking? All of this plays a role in your genetic expression throughout life. Another way to look at that is it's called epigenetics. It's looking at how of these lifestyle factors in the exposome influence our genetic expression. When you look at genetics, you can kind of look at genetics as what loads the gun, and epigenetics is what fires the gun. So genes need to be, as far as my understanding, turned on or off based on the environment that we put them in. So the exposome is exquisitely important to be aware of in all aspects of healing, because if you were a cesarean section baby and you didn't get introduced to your mom's bacteria through the vaginal canal, you were introduced to pioneer bacteria in the hospital, which means your gut microbiota might be a little off from the time of birth, and that may have to be addressed now. And all of that can influence the expression of health and wellness within you simply by being a cesarean section baby. So looking at the whole spectrum of who you were and have been and who you want to be throughout your life has influence on how healthy you're going to be at this moment in time. The environment too, the exposome, thinking about currently your current environment. What's your current mental and emotional environment within yourself? Is it dysregulated? Is it angry? Is it happy? Is there tension? Is there conflict? And not any of these things being in a positive, negative light. Just being aware of what is your current internal environment, how are you internally treating yourself, and what is your current external environment? What kind of house are you living in? What kind of relationships do you have outside of yourself? Significant others, family, etc. What do you do for work? How do you feel about what you do for work? All of this plays a role in your health and wellness and the expression of that and how that shows up. So we got play, we got exposome, and then we have pleasure. Yay. So pleasure, again, I would use that third lens. What is pleasurable to you? I'll share some things that are very pleasurable to me. I love to get massage. So I schedule a massage once a week. So that's very pleasurable, and it feels like I'm giving myself a gift every week. I love to study and to read things that I'm really into, not to teach a certain class or maybe study something that feels like I need to study it. It's looking at things that are pleasurable for me to look into and dive into. I find a lot of pleasure in connecting with my family and friends and being more and more authentic with my true feelings and what's coming up inside of me. That may not always be experienced as pleasurable, but in the long run creates a pleasurable experience for me. Laughter, funny movies, sexual contact, touching, anything that brings a pleasurable experience to you is also, again, very healing to all the things that we've talked about. The brain, the gut, the musculoskeletal system, the organs and glands, all of these things are considered when I'm looking at myself and how am I creating health and wellness within myself. And then so we have play.
Actually, before we move on to pain,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, actually the first and the third, play and pleasure. I can imagine a lot of people saying, well, I get that that's important, but if you ask them about the hierarchy of things that they need to do in their lives, right? Oh, well, I have to work to put food on my family, and maybe then I have to do the sort of brute things that I know I need to do to be healthy, like, I need to eat right, and I need to exercise, and I need to get in bed. And if you ask them where the list of, okay, play and doing the things that you find pleasurable, where are those on your list? Well, I would love to have them, but, they're kind of down there, right? And so
Mhm.
how do you sort of get people to maybe flip that switch and start to see that, well, play and pleasure shouldn't be considered separate from what makes you happy and healthy, right? They're actually really crucial. How do you get them to sort of move those things up on the list of what they see as priorities?
I think that's a great question, James.
Mm.
I'm going to steal something from my UK friend who does blogs here. I
Mm.
can't remember his name. But what I'm going to steal from him, or maybe he'll let me share it as well, is he said sacred
Oh
selfishness.
yeah, that's Warren Williams, right?
Warren.
Yeah,
And I've been dancing with selfishness from a sacred place for a long time. And once he put that sacred word in front of it,
yeah.
it gave me a new perspective to share with my clients. And that our time is sacred.
Mm.
And learning to care for self first is a sacred time to build the internal energy that we can share with our family, our friends, our kids, our work, etc. In my experience of life from a social cultural perspective, we're kind of raised to give ourselves away. Giving ourselves
Mm.
away means we're a good person. Well,
Hmm.
I'm essentially become the martyr. I do this for you, I do this for you, I do this for you. All the while, we don't do anything to take care of
Mm.
ourselves, except for giving to others, which creates a lot of resentment if we're not giving to
Yeah,
ourselves.
yeah, yeah,
So we become the rescuer, then we become the victim, and then we become the punisher.
yeah.
And that is something I think we all kind of dance with. So what I do with my clients is I'm very careful with the language that I use with clients. So I don't get clients to do anything.
Hmm.
I personally invite clients to consider. Would you consider bringing more playfulness into your life? And would you consider that that might add some more health, well-being, fun, lightness, inner child expression to your life? Would you be willing to think about, hey, when's the last time you just had some pleasurable experience for yourself, completely yourself? Most of my clients, when I ask that question about play or pleasure, have none,
Mm.
James.
Yeah.
Zero.
Wow. Yeah.
And that is really scary for me because a lot of us are ingrained with this idea that we need to just give of self to other to be considered a good person. And my framework's a little different. My framework's looking at is the more I can have sacred selfishness, thank you, Warren, the more I'm caring for myself and honoring myself and learning how to create my own happiness, my own self-reliance. I'm learning how to parent myself, love myself, and with that comes this energy that then I can start to share that with others from a place of overflowing
Yeah.
rather than from a place of running on credit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I invite my clients to consider it. And it's a great question because that takes, in my experience, an exquisite amount of time and effort for clients to start looking into their childhood and their past and where they learned this way of being.
Mm.
Where did I learn to get my emotional and mental needs met through giving myself away?
Yeah. Yeah. Great. That's good.
Yeah. Thank you for your approval, James.
Happy to approve. I approve.
Oh, good
Okay.
times.
Yes. So pain.
Yeah, so this might be my favorite one.
Right. Weirdo.
uh,
That's right.
yes,
Yeah.
the weirdo. Um, pain. Why might that be my favorite? I think it's such a, there's a part of me that finds pain to be, I don't like it and I want to run from it and I don't want it into my life.
Mm.
And there's another part of me that I think is growing more and more where I'm looking at pain as a guidance system.
Mm.
It's really guiding me to where I may be out of balance in my life. Where might I be overworking? Where might I be overworking out? So that's kind of all the physical stuff, and that, that's cool to me. But what's more interesting to me about pain and how this whole PEPPRS thing shows up in our body is that a lot of clients that I've worked with who are unwilling, and that's okay, to look at their unconscious pain still show up with quite a bit of dysfunction in their musculoskeletal system or their organ and glandular system. And when you look at that from a kind of a psychological perspective, Bruce Lipton quotes research that 5% of us are conscious mind, and 95% of us are unconscious mind. If 95% of us, our minds are unconscious, and we have a lot of hidden trauma, shame, guilt, stuff that we hide, experiences from the past, that unconscious pain expresses itself on a daily basis. It expresses itself in your body. It expresses itself when you get triggered at others. It expresses itself when you're judgmental. It all gets expressed, and those are all moments where an unconscious part of you is looking to you for attention, looking to you to be looked at. And most of us want to push pain away and say, no, 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 no. We don't want that. We should always be happy. We should always feel good, rather than inviting and embracing, well, what's underneath that pain? What does that pain represent to me? Why do I get triggered around this person every day? Why am I super judgmental of this person? Can I start to turn that around and start looking back at me and seeing what is my unconscious mind projecting onto this person that's more actually a story of me that I'm in denial of, that I don't want to see? So one of the things that is a practical thing that I started to do for a while was I started to carry around a makeup mirror. And so when I would have judgment or trigger, etc., I would take out my mirror and look at, who am I actually judging? Who am I actually getting triggered by? What might I be projecting outwardly that I'm seeing and creating a complete story about this person that may or may not be true? So another example of the unconscious pain is a lot of people who are listening to this blog, I would imagine foam roll. And a lot of people who foam roll, I would imagine, would say, well, let's say some of them don't have any pain. I say, hey, do you have any body pain? No, I'm pretty much pain-free. Well, good, you're pain-free. Yet when you get on the foam roll, you find unconscious pain. You find where the pain's hidden in your body. So as a metaphor, doing this kind of mental and emotional work is you're foam rolling your ego. You're getting your foam roll out, and you're rolling aspects of yourself, and you're finding where you have unconscious trigger points that need to be, I don't want to say need to be, might want to be addressed if you want to move past the current story that you're in, the current structure that you're stuck in, the current relationship that you're in with yourself first, and then outwardly. So pain for me is an excellent teacher. If people are willing to embrace that and embrace, okay, what is being represented here? What might be underneath this? And for me, it's another practical point around pain is ask yourself this very simple question. Whether it's a physical, my knee hurts, or a trigger with a person, ask yourself this simple question. What does this pain represent to me? Can you move out of the literal realm, and can you start moving into the metaphoric, symbolic, paradoxical, and creative realms, and start to move back from the literal, because the literal for me is very rigid. When you start looking at things, what does it represent to me and what's coming up from the past? Or when you get triggered at somebody, ask yourself this simple question: how old do I feel right now?
Yeah.
Not how old am I? How old do I feel? Well, that's pretty interesting. I feel about 7 years old. What might have happened to you at 7 years old that's being projected onto this current moment that's enough tangibility or enough similarness to bring up the 7-year-old, so you're having the same experience that you're projecting onto this current moment, and really getting in touch with the goggles and glasses that we all wear through our experiences of the past. It's a really interesting question to ask if anyone's ever really present.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I approve again, especially of that. I like that. I'm a big person for physical, like tangible mnemonic devices. So that idea of having a compact, right? Something that breaks you out of that gut sort of knee jerk emotional response and gives you the space to take a breath and evaluate, right? Something that, because that was going to be another one of my questions again, was how do you, when you're in the throes of pain, right? It's whatever the pain is, whether, as you said, it's a knee pain or some emotional pain, getting yourself out of the pain enough to observe it and think about it it's hard.
I would agree. I would agree.
I enjoy your approval of my point.
For me, it brings up something else that I think is a video that I'm going to shoot soon for my own channel, which is one of the most powerful meditations for me to bring awareness to self. And that is, I've noticed I really pay attention to people's language, the words that they choose, the structures that they put in, because I believe that there's a tremendous amount of energy in our language, in our languaging. And through that, I noticed that there's 3 words that tend to dance in my vocabulary, at least in the past, quite a bit. I'm going to blame this on California. So I'm from California. Like is one of those words. So in California, we'll say, and he was like, and then I was like, and then she was like. And I noticed this like showing up all the time in my languaging. So like was one. Just was another. Just for me is a placeholder for a lot of not expressing as much as I really want to express. So I just love you. Well, that's a placeholder for a tremendous amount of stuff that I may not want to share. Yeah. So just is like a placeholder for me. Like, there's my like. And then the last one was actually. So I chose these 3 words, which is quite hard. And what I had to do is I really had to start slowing down my speech rate and start paying super exquisite attention to the words that I choose. Because those 3 words were so habitual, they would just... So I had to really start slowing down my speech rate, paying attention internally to the words that I choose to say. And that has been one of the most powerful meditative practices I know, because that slowing down and choosing is the exact thing you can do when you have to. You might want to slow down so you can respond rather than just react. There's my just.
Yeah, right.
So it's still, as you guys can hear, a work in progress. I'm still working on my likes, actuallys, and justs. And it really helps me to slow down and pay attention to myself. And that helps me to grow that awareness, and that expands into every other facet of my life. Noticing when I get triggered by others, notice when I pedestal others, notice when I put others down, notice when I judge others, notice when I get triggered, notice when I get anxious. and start to ask those questions. How well do I feel?
Mm.
Getting on this video with you, or when I teach, there's always a part of me that gets nervous. And I've nailed it down to a couple of Jators in there. And one of them is 12-year-old Jator who still doesn't feel like he's good enough and is always trying to prove himself and be more. And that little guy, before I teach or do a video like this, I have to spend some time with him and parent him and be his father and be his mother and be his older brother, not through the lenses that I was taught about parenting, not to tell him what to do, but to really just be there with him, embrace him, and support him how he needs to be supported and embraced. So then I can get on camera and do this.
Well, and admittedly, I'm pretty intimidating too, so.
That's true. That's true.
Well, this is really fascinating, and sometimes, it occurs to me, as you're kind of working your way through these, that you've developed a kind of habitual self-awareness.
Yeah.
And that idea of making a habit of self-awareness and how you build that habit, I want to ask you all about that. But I know that we've got at least 2 more letters to get through, and so
Yes.
so maybe we can save that for another time. But I just wanted to take a second to point that out, that it looks like you do have to learn to make a habit. You have to teach yourself. You have to inculcate a habit of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to. This, for a part of me, is really fun, and I enjoy it. So yeah.
All right, we'll table it for next time.
Okay, so we got play, exposome, pleasure, pain, rest. Huge. Taking time out for self and resting. And this one kind of attaches into what a lot of people may know as adrenal fatigue, which I will talk about more as HPA axis dysregulation. So hypothalamus pituitary adrenal dysregulation. And to help clients and yourself get out of HPA axis dysregulation, I'll just say adrenal fatigue to keep it short. To get out of adrenal fatigue, play, paying attention to exposome, past environment, current environment, pleasure, unconscious pain and or conscious pain, which can easily push someone into a pro-inflammatory state globally, which can easily lead into adrenal fatigue. So those things need or might want to be played with, looked at, and peeled back. And one reason in my experience of myself personally and working with clients, rest is one of the hardest ones. And I find that to be from kind of a social cultural perspective, who of us are celebrated for resting?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I could make the Olympics for that one, though.
I think I could too. I mean, I got a snail tattooed on my forearm to remind me to slow down and rest. And again, looking at that through the ancestral lens, well, we had lots of downtime, community time, rest time, going to bed around the rise and fall of the sun and waking up around the rise of the sun. I've heard clients say, just where I went swimming with my family, we went to the beach, I didn't bring my phone, I didn't bring this and that, and I passed out all day. And God, the sun made me so tired. And in my head, I'm thinking, it wasn't the sun that made you tired. It was that you were extracted from your normal environment, your normal exposome, where you're only celebrated for doing. And from a social, cultural standpoint, it's okay to pass it out at the beach all day. Everyone's doing it. So we get to see how tired we are. Yeah. And one of the hardest things in my experience to help people move out of adrenal fatigue is people actually have to feel how tired they are to accept it, be aware of it, and start to move out of it. But our society isn't based on rest. Our society is based on you doing more, staying more connected, answering more texts, answering more emails, doing better at work, continuing your education, go, go, go. You're only celebrated if you make a certain amount of money. What kind of man are you if you're not providing? What kind of woman are you if you're not being a feminist and moving forward and making a stand for yourself? All of these underlying social, cultural stuff that, pushes each of us, and then our environment, at home, what we learned from our parents, what we saw our mother and father doing, and how we emulate them, and how we're either compliant or defiant to our family values, and how that shows up. So one practical thing I will say around rest, besides do it, is
That's
and
good.
it being extremely, extremely, extremely healing, is around sleep. I invite a lot of clients to not look at their phone or their alarm clock once the sun goes down. And why that is I've had many experiences with women in my life. I tend to go to bed very early, who will look at I'll be going to bed, they'll be going to bed too, then they'll look at their phone. I'm not going to bed at 8:30. Immediately, and that happens with men as well, immediately the inner child comes up who says, wait a second, it's too early to go to bed. I want to stay up and do-da-da-da-da-da. And that aspect comes up. So rest is hugely important. I don't look at the time when I'm going to bed, because it really, at least for me, it can trigger some self-judgment. Oh, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or God, how old am I? Why am I going to bed? But a good night's sleep, of all these things, is one of the most underrated things you can do for yourself, is get a good night's sleep, take a nap during the day, take some time out for yourself, and just rest and do nothing. Even if it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's exquisitely healing to the body.
I would say one of the best things that I ever did around that was ditching an alarm clock altogether. I don't wake up to an alarm anymore.
Yes.
Ever. Unless I have some sort of flight to catch. But otherwise, I just don't bother. I let my body wake up when it wakes up. And I know that people will have fear about, oh, well, I got to get to work at a certain time. But if you go to bed early enough, your body naturally wakes you up at a time when you need to do stuff. So, but it's so much better not to wake up to this sort of screaming alarm clock every morning.
Yes, for sure. And on that note, maybe I can get some money for this. There's an alarm called progressive alarm on what's that called? The iPhone, whatever that is. On your iPhone, it's called progressive alarm, and it wakes you up with Tibetan sound bells. Okay. And it slowly progresses, gets louder and louder. So it's very low and it's a little higher and a little higher. So it's a very soft, lovely way to wake up, rather than the which is already starting you off on a stress response first thing in the morning.
Yeah. Will you make that sound again?
That's how it sounds to me. God, turn that off.
It does, yeah.
So,
good.
What do we got here? Play, exposome, pleasure, pain, rest, and the last one is soil of self. And the soil of self encompasses Paul's 6 principles and 4 doctors. And what soil of self is for me is something just to be aware of, that your mental and emotional state, your consciousness, your awareness, your stories, your experiences, back to that exposome at conception, and potentially if you're into other lives, past lives, etc., maybe even beyond that, maybe. That all has an influence on your consciousness, your mental and emotional state, And that is literally, for me, what your organs and glands grow out of.
Mm.
And out of your organs and glands is what your musculoskeletal system grows out of. So if you look at yourself as essentially a plant or a tree, one of the first things we may need to do to create health and wellness within each of us is start to till the soil of self.
Mm.
Start to look into our mental and emotional state. Start to look into our respiratory pattern and our breathing patterns. All of these things in the PEPPRS, play, exposome, pleasure, pain, rest, all influence your breathing pattern and your respiratory patterns. So that's all influence there. So looking at your breath. Then we have hydration, that influences as well. We have food, rest, and movement. And all of these things accumulate into the soil of self. So for me, it's looking at the whole things, the PEPPRS, as a way to start tilling your self soil and honoring that your musculoskeletal system is only going to function and perform at the level of the soil, right? We can look at, this is pretty basic stuff. We can look at an organic farm, a biodynamic farm, and most of us have been exposed to the idea that the healthier the soil, the healthier the plant, the more nutrient dense it is, the more life in the soil, the more balance in the soil, the healthier the plant, the fruit, the healthier the animals that are eating those things. So this is just kind of this PEPPRS thing for me is a metaphor for really being your own self-farmer and really considering, okay, what is the soil out of which I'm growing as a human being? And how do I start looking at that stuff? Great. Start looking at how much play you have in your life. Start looking at your exposome and what your history was like and your current. If you don't want to do that, then look at your current environment and how you're treating yourself. Look at how much pleasure you have. How much underlying pain or how much conscious pain do you have? How much rest are you getting? Then looking at the 6 principles. What's your mental and emotional state like? What's your respiratory pattern like? What's your hydration like? What's your food like? What's your movement like? What's your sleep like? And then the 4 doctors, diet, again, right? Movement, and happiness, and those all fit together too. So looking at, happiness for me is really Dr. Balance, Dr. Mental and Emotional, and looking at what's underneath there. What are the values that I have that I'm creating my life with? Quiet is the home of it all. It's the untapped potential, as Paul would say. It's the zero full and the zero empty. It's out of which all of this movement is birthed. You are birthed, your perceptions, any subject-object relationship. Looking at your movement, are you moving too much or too little? I think my phone is about to turn off, so I was checking that out.
So let me ask, for our listeners and our viewers, this is really intriguing. If they wanted to start sort of making use of this in your life, is there one part of PEPPRS that you think most people overlook that is a good place for them to start, or how would you sort of ease somebody into this?
Yeah, so one of my first things that I worked on with myself and with my clients is really learning. I'm going to steal from Warren again, sacred selfishness. How do I start to honor myself? How do I start to care for myself? How do I start to look at the level at which I care for myself means I will have excess energy to, if that's what I want to do with my excess energy, care for others, then I'll have that energy to do that. It's back to Paul's I, we, all model.
Yeah.
I, we, all, right? So another way for I, we, all that I really appreciate is one must be selfish to find self to then become selfless.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of taught to be selfless first with never honoring self, which for me just leads to codependent, resentful relationships.
Yeah.
So my first invitation for any client is finding, like Paul would say, their dream, finding their purpose, finding their legacy, finding their vision, finding something that's motivating to them, so they can start looking at this framework of, okay, if that's something important that I want to create, and I need self-time to create that, how do I start to carve out time in my life specifically just for me? And just this morning, I was working with a client, and we went into her Google Calendar and started to schedule self-time. It started with 1 hour, which is a start in the right direction,
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Well, I like that, and yeah, it's certainly going to be hard for you to be well, right, if you don't have that sense of sacred selfishness, and that
I
desire that
think
comes
so.
out of that to take care of yourself.
I think so. I think, that all of that, everything else that we do kind of is a bleeding of our own, essentially our own blood, our own externalization of self. And we're not really taught, at least here in the West, in my
Mm,
experience, to take care of ourselves.
mm,
But there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself.
yeah.
It's, for me, it's one of the most beautiful things that we can each do. And that also bleeds into the story of each of us on this planet learning how to be self-reliant and responsible for self.
Mm,
Learning how to be responsible for my own happiness, my own sadness, my own discord, and to be more responsible rather than blaming others and saying everybody else is responsible for how I feel.
yeah.
I think a lot of us learned that lesson in kindergarten. I think we just forgot it, which was, I know I did. I was a class clown, and I'm
No.
cracking up, and I'm cracking up. My friends creating some joke over here, and the teachers stop laughing, Jator. And I look at the teacher and I say, I can't stop laughing. He's making me laugh.
Mm, mm-hmm.
My teacher would say, no one can make you laugh. So I make me laugh based on my experience of what he's sharing. I make me happy based on my experience of what this person's doing. I make me sad based on my experience of what this person's doing. I am responsible for how I feel. No one else is.
Mm. Yeah, that's moving. I can definitely see the more we talk about peppers, the value in the way that it leads you to look inwards. And as you were saying, taking responsibility for your health, your own health. Well, it's hard to do that if you haven't spent also the same time to look inwards. And so I can see how there's great value in that perspective. I approve. Great. Well, geez, Jator, thanks so much for stopping by and for talking to us about this. It's like I said, I really see the value in this, and I imagine that your clients are seeing it too.
I hope so.
Well, they're coming back, so I guess
Yes,
you're
they
doing
are.
some.
They are coming back, and I think I've been working on what my purpose is, and my first purpose is to myself, to dive into self and learn more about who I think I am and who I want to be.
Yeah.
And that's also for me a great kind of segue into learning more and more about who I am not so I can find who I am. So looking at my self-identifications. And the other part of that purpose is to stretch myself and put myself out there like this, because doing stuff like this is so outside of my norm It feels very uncomfortable, and for a part of me, very uncomfortable, and very scary for another part of me. And finding the voice that it's okay that I have the gifts, and so do each of you, and sharing those gifts with the world, maybe from a humble place of sharing what comes through you, and honoring that. So that's what I'm
Well,
here doing.
I will invite you to come feel uncomfortable with me anytime you like.
Okay, cool.
We will always have you back here on the CHEK blog. So
Awesome.
thanks so much, Jator. And I want to let everybody know that if you want to go and watch Jator feeling uncomfortable on his YouTube channel, you can always do that at Explore with Jator. So just go to YouTube and search for Explore with Jator, and you'll find lots of great videos there. So thanks again, Jator. And yeah, let's talk about building that habit of self-awareness
Yeah,
sometime soon. I would love to do that.
I'm in, man. Let's do it.
All right, great. Well, thanks, Jator. We'll talk again soon.
Later.